Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our concepts edition for the week. I am Devin Bedoni of Lichen Precision.
And I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing.
And you have an amazing quote for today.
Oh, yes. There's nothing so useless as doing something efficiently that shouldn't be done at all. From Drucker, quoted in Designing the Future.
Whoopsh.
Excellent quote. Yeah. I had a slight modification to it. I mean, both quotes are excellent, but I think you can replace efficiency with refinement.
Mm-hmm.
Like doing something like to a high degree of fidelity, like a high fidelity prototype or anything else before it's proven to be needed at all, which is super easy also.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've fallen into this trap for sure in the shop, like if making systems efficient that don't belong there at all.
Mm-hmm.
And also just, I think it's sort of easy with sort of like 2-second lean or, I mean, whatever method of finding waste and eliminating it.
Yeah.
I think it can be easy to sort of be in the trenches a little too much sometimes.
Yeah, you just like kind of like keep repainting the house a different color instead of being like, this foundation needs to get torn out.
Yeah, it's like it gets into the like the what is it? Operation focused, process blind. It's not focused, but that quote.
Operation sensitive.
Yeah, process blind. It's like you get in the operation and you refine it, but meanwhile that operation is not useful at all.
Yeah.
And is just making up for some other like defect you're creating or something else.
Yeah, it reminds me sometimes of like a hoarder house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like these, very refined pathways between all of the trash.
Right.
When you're like, actually, you just need to get all that trash out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need to sweep. Sweeping is not the thing you need to do.
Right. Yeah.
You need to shovel.
Sweeping your corridors.
Yeah.
And not noticing the fact that you have to walk through 2 extra rooms because those rooms are full of junk.
Right.
Not the.
Yeah. Also, so we've been, we renamed from Con Bunny, although that site does redirect still, but to Arda. So Arda.cards. Anyway, as part of that project.
Curious.
I think. I haven't actually tested it. Yeah, here we go live.
Arda.cards.
Arda.cards.
Not secure.
Excellent. Well, I'll fire off a quick text and get that fixed. Anyway, that was a thing we did this morning, so evidently not finished. But
is this you? No, this is not you.
Very curious.
Let's try again. We're just going live.
Trying it live here. Anyway, that's not better. So we've been talking to a lot of different companies, which has been super interesting, and just a real reminder of like what an echo chamber we have existed in for the past 1.5 or 2 years.
You and I specifically.
Yes. Yeah.
And everyone listening to this. Probably.
Everyone listening to this, and then everyone we sort of talk to about this stuff.
Yeah. Is
like, I don't know that I have any friends who don't really know about like the Toyota production system, because whenever I talk to them, I'm like, yeah, what about this? I mean, that's probably a lie, but anyway, it's been really interesting. Like, it sort of has reinvigorated my interest a little, because I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in, I don't know, like just, you can see how far you need to go and how imperfect things are, and then you're also simultaneously still trying to make money and run a business, which is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not just like instantly crushing it, right? It's not like, I just read the Toyota production system and did a month of improvements, and now we're like 500% more efficient.
No. Yes.
And on top of that, even if you were 500x'd your production, which we kind of did over the last few years, that comes along with a lot of new challenges. So it's not just like instant win.
Right.
But then talking to all these people, you're kind of reminded of like more where you started, even in just awareness. And that's been fun and interesting and a little exasperating sometimes. So we've been talking about like the reorder process that people use now. And people will describe this very time consuming process and then just be like, yeah, but it's fine. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is it though? Like, you're telling me that you're like pretty time constrained And I think it makes me think of like the ninth lean waste of chaos.
Yeah.
Where because there's no system, there's not like an awareness of like, if you systemized 80% of the stuff, because a lot of people do have edge cases. I'm sure you do. I do. Right. Sure. Of like stuff you order that's like, we probably could make a Kanban for this, but every time we change who we order it from, or I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Like we don't Kanban like pizza for an office pizza party, right? Like we just order it. So like there are edge cases, but like I remember a piece of, I forget which book, Shigeo Shingo, talking about like a machine that spit out these parts that were punched out of a sheet, and the parts didn't fall out of the sheet after being punched, and so they had two people there.
Yeah.
Pulling the parts out, and he was like, why don't you have a machine do that? And they're like, well, we tried, but the machine only got, always left like one or two in the sheet.
Yeah.
And he's like, great, go get the machine. And then he had one person there instead of two, taking out that 1 to 3 pieces that the machine missed. Yeah. And that was sufficient. And so like, it just feels like people just live in this, and I'm sure I do too in some areas of the business. Oh, I can think of one very specifically, is email campaigns. Like, it starts to feel really hard to sort of separate, like, okay, what are the groups of people who I want to email? And then what do I want to email them? And how do I want to configure that email? Mm-hmm. And you basically get back to like, oh, it's impossible for me to make this more efficient because every single relationship is unique. And I want to say to them like, this and that. And I want to, but like realistically, it's probably like, yeah, maybe there's a greeting little 3 lines that you want to handwrite. Yeah. But probably the rest of it for 80% of your emails could be identical. Right. But like, it's really hard to take that time to spend, like spend that time to really drill into it. Yeah. And I think before you sort of like, raise your awareness sounds maybe a little pretentious, but like once you start looking for waste everywhere, like I think your confidence that you can eliminate a lot of waste goes up, even if you can't see a path there. Yeah. Another thing I've been thinking about on the ordering front, because this is also something we've been working on actively recently, is like there's the time savings, and I think those are real, though I'm sure that some people get very efficient at their jobs, and probably if you were to like, they're doing something very efficiently that... or whatever, it doesn't need to be... I think it does like, right, the stuff needs to get ordered. Yeah. Right. The fact that a person is dedicated to doing that, questionable. Yeah. But if you're like myopically focused on the act of ordering and maintaining inventory, right, I think some people have a strong argument that they do a very good job, right? Yes. But I think as soon as you broaden your scope beyond just the act of ordering to all of the knock-on effects of ordering, it starts to become a very different picture. Like we're dealing with this right now, and I'm looking at the system, and it's not necessarily going to be 100% faster to place an order. I think it will in most cases, but our primary motivation is like, I don't want to ever be out of a tool that we need. Right? Because those effects, it needs to be super reliable. It needs to be ultra reliable. Yeah. And then secondarily, I want to have a system where somebody can come in on their first day and maintain tooling inventory. And that seems like those are where the real wins are, is like whole system efficiency. 100%. That now you don't need somebody who with a high degree of knowledge about what they're ordering to do the ordering. For sure. And the system as a whole runs without running out of its critical pieces. Right. And like that stuff people have zero awareness of. The craziest one is like, I'll talk to people and they tell me how good they are at their job, which is like, I'm sure you are, like stepping past the fact that like, why get good at that job? Sure. I mean, it's cool. Like I was actually talking about this, like I'm pretty dyslexic, and I sort of feel like that's been an advantage because it's sort of like single piece flow really elevates all waste. Like I'm so bad at it that it's kind of like I need to systemize it. Like you cannot rely on your just personal skill. Exactly. And so like the people who can, like that's great. I guess maybe. Yeah. It works for them. It works. But then I'm like, oh, do you like what happens if you go on vacation? And they're like, well, you know, I order stuff while on vacation, or like I don't take vacations, but there's just, it doesn't seem like that ranks very highly on people's a lot of people's list is like not being super reliant on individual, like really skilled individuals.
Yeah.
Even though that's like such a risk to the business.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you have a really good operator, like, don't you want to systemize what they're doing so they can move on to the next thing to systemize that and so on? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Those are the big gains to me.
Yeah.
When I look at this, and I think making that argument to people purely on time will always be a challenge.
It's funny. It's not such a challenge, but lately my argument is definitely like, we will save you, like, just in time, our product is going to save you money.
Uh-huh.
But even more than that, you get all these other effects. Like,
yeah.
I think there's time savings elsewhere that people don't think about, like walking across the shop to tell someone, hey, we need to get more gloves.
Right.
Like, they don't really think about that. But then also just like a reliable system that you can train people on easily, that someone else can step in if someone's on vacation and like stuff keeps moving, and there's good documentation just inherently by running that system. And
yeah.
Anyway, all that stuff. Yeah, it's interesting to talk to people who are like really, really, really like not square one and like I don't know. It's easy to lose sight of like where we started, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of on the topic of the edge cases and 80% thing, and like how we often throw the baby out with the bathwater because we're like, this isn't gonna.
It's not a complete solution.
Not a complete solution. As I've mentioned a bunch of times, like our work mix has changed drastically over the last 4 months, basically 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
So I'm contemplating buying different machines, selling machines, like how can we better approach the work that we're taking.
Interesting.
But I had not actually done any, actual analysis. This is all on a gut check.
Yeah.
So I did a little, I'm going to open up the sheet here real quick.
Did you do a little going and seeing?
I did some going and seeing.
Wow.
What's the Genshi Genbutsu? Is that what it is?
I think that's right.
So I did a little, it was like, I tried to do like an in-depth analysis, and I was like, this is going to, I only have half an hour. Like, can't quite do that. But I did a simple thing of like,
oh, nice.
Were they a good fit for us in size or too big? Did they need mill turn work? And did they need 5-axis work?
This is awesome.
And got a simple...
So for everyone listening, we're currently looking at a spreadsheet with 4 columns. One says good, the next is too big, needs mill turn, and needs 5-axis. And then it's just a bunch of ones in the column that it fits in for each job, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ones in that left column.
Yeah. So, which was kind of cool to realize. There is, what is it? It's not like confirmation bias here, but this was only of work that we won.
Right. Yeah. So if you quoted it because it was a huge pain in the ass, it's not in this sample.
If I didn't win the job.
Right.
It's not in this sample, so that is going to skew things slightly.
True. Yeah.
But what I kind of came to, which was kind of cool, and not so surprising, was that like things that were a good physical fit for our machines that we have right now was 88% of our work, basically. Okay. 13% of it I considered to be too big for our machines. So basically what I just tallied.
Doesn't this add up to more than 100?
Yeah, it's not like the too big and the good add up to 100.
Oh, gotcha.
And then the needs mill turn and needs 5-axis are a percentage of the whole.
I got it. I see.
Yeah, so I kind of came away with it that like,
oh, cool.
Needs mill turn is basically 17% of our work, and needs 5-axis is 27% of our work.
Okay.
Which, I'm kind of contemplating like, do we buy a mill turn? Do we buy a 5-axis?
Right.
Do we buy something that could do a little bit of both? This was a good kind of breakdown to be like, oh, these are some relatively hard numbers that kind of point in a direction. And I do feel like 27% of our work requiring 5-axis to do efficiently.
Right.
Like, obviously we did all this work.
Yeah.
But these were jobs where I was like, wow, that would have been so much easier and probably better quality if we'd had 5-axis. Definitely points to like this is probably something worth thinking about. Mm-hmm. If that number was 50%, I'd be like, I'm in a bad position, I would think. And 27% is kind of like, I think you should be thinking about this. but it was good to actually have these numbers instead of just be, kind of staring at stuff and being like, no, I don't know. Is it 5% of our work? And just that 5% really like gets elevated because it sucks.
Yeah.
Or is it 10%? Is it 70%?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting, and yeah, this was actually spreadsheet number 2 because I started complicated spreadsheet number 1 and got like 3 columns in, and I was like, I'm going to be here for all day. This is not an effective way to
That's super cool.
approach this problem.
Yeah. That is sort of a seamless transition into, so our friend Avi teaches a class at UW.
Uh-huh.
It's, anyway, I'm giving a guest lecture on like rapid prototyping.
Yeah.
And this idea of like a suitable level of resolution of the prototype. Like this spreadsheet is so informative, and then like maybe there are follow-up questions, but it's so easy to like scope creep your oh, well, that's missing this factor, so let me add a column for that. And then it's like 3 days later and you realize that actually didn't really do what you thought it would do, and you haven't finished it. Uh-huh. And so you sort of have nothing, instead of like spending an appropriate, like sort of, I don't know, like an appropriate amount of time for like where you're at in the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think we've talked about this on the podcast, but basically just going to really hammer home the like, I have a bunch of stories that are hammering home the idea of like, don't get out over your skis. And I feel like it's so easy to do it.
Yeah.
And just like, what problem are you trying to solve right now? Like, what's the highest risk item in this project? And then like just going after that. Yeah. And like, it doesn't need to be fully integrated into a working full prototype. It's just like, can we do this one piece? Yeah. In Designing the Future, they were, I reread it. In Designing the Future, they were talking about like a robotic arm company that builds robotic arms for at the bottom of the sea.
Oh, uh-huh.
And they had a new arm they were trying to develop, and they were sort of like finalizing the CAD models, and there was a lot of questions around like routing hydraulic hoses, mm-hmm. and they can't like get tangled or kink right in any configuration. And so everyone was like, yep, looks good, except for like one old timer who was kind of like, how do we know? We're not sure. Hard to say. Yeah. And so the lead on the project, like that just sort of stuck in his head, and he was like, I'm just going to like go into the shop and cut up some plywood and stick it together and just like mock this thing up. Yeah. Just to like kind of make sure before we spend a huge amount of money. And like he got, 10 minutes into sticking bits of wood together and just realized like for sure it's not going to work. Yeah. Anyway, just like reducing that confidence of like, what do we actually know for sure? And normally it's very little. Yeah.
I have been dealing with this. We've been continuing on our tool organization system, and it's blossomed. It's more than that now. But it's been interesting in that I feel like I was intentionally trying to keep things simple and not overly complicate. Okay. And now into it, I wish we would have done that even more.
Keeping it simple?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like some of the numerical, and we've gone over this like ad nauseum at this point. Right. But the fact that I did any kind of groupings at all at this point, I'm like, that was a bad move.
Interesting.
Pretty much.
Right. So it's easy to go in and be like, ooh, this is fancy. Imagine that. Yeah. And not like, well, let's cross that bridge when we get there or something.
Yeah.
Do you think there was like a smaller, quicker prototype of the system that would have been informative to do? Like to sort of like spend 2 hours actually.
It's a good question.
Like dealing with tools and being like, let's try this system and now go put it away and now get it. And
probably. I think it's one of those things like it's a 2020 hindsight scenario where, and I kind of knew this, but I like just didn't have the experience to get to think through the edge cases. It's kind of interesting to think through how we would have developed an experiment. Right. Probably just like picking tools and seeing how they would, assigning numbers and then like experimenting. We probably could have figured it out, but I feel like I've learned a lot, which is really cool, in how organizational systems, all the different, like I feel like every week I'm like, oh, there's actually this one other thing that this system is actually doing.
Interesting.
But we are where we are now.
Totally.
And we're dialing it back.
But I think what's super cool about designing the future is that, yes, you've learned a lot about like the organizational systems. I think in Toyota's case, they were doing like continuous improvement on their design process as well.
Yeah.
And so like they were learning not just like how do we make better cars or whatever, but how do we make a better process for making better cars?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. So it rarely feels like a good use of time is the reality, right?
What does the experimentation?
If one of if you're like, hey guys, let's as a shop stop for 5 hours and like just play around with tools and like imagine different scenarios and try them. You'd be like, yeah, probably a good idea. Let's not do it.
Yeah,
it's so
there's
hard
that. I put a note in here that like I think it's super important to start your systems out early and start them out simple. Like, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm sure somebody will come up with counterpoints. But I don't think there's very instances where adding complexity is hard. Right? Like if you get into a system and you're like, actually we need this other division.
Right.
Like I think those tend to be simple to create, but going the other direction is really hard.
Yeah.
And if you start your system simple and early, you learn a lot and you can always build from there. But now we're many years deep into me personally ordering tools and a few years deep into some sort of an organizational system, and then trying to like kind of back into that again and overlay a new system on top of those old systems in a way that meshes it gets pretty messy and it's a lot of work.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Like I don't know. It's something I've thought about quite a bit. Like implementing new systems. I don't know. This has been a recurring theme, but like not deciding on a direction and then going with it, but like deciding on a direction for an experiment and going with it. Like I think this is an improvement, but like it's not production. Like this is not what we're doing yet.
Yeah.
Just because it is so hard to change direction and there is so much time that goes into each version if you do it like full on.
Yeah, it's kind of hard with some of these things too. I think like you read about Toyota trialing a new method or something on like a single line,
right?
Or a single part of a single line.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's cool, but we're
only
just
have
like,
one line.
One line. We only have this many tools, and like
totally
having two systems in place simultaneously is just chaos. I don't know. Maybe it would have been worthwhile to try.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the thing that's tough is that I sort of suspect that like we sort of downplay the downsides of the failures because they weren't foreseen and like increase the like this idea that like who could have seen it coming.
Yeah.
I don't know. In the world of sort of like system improvement, it's like you go deep in one direction and then at the end you're like, okay, well, we just learned a tremendous amount. So how cool is that?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that is cool, but you have spent a lot of resources on developing that one experiment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would guess like much like your spreadsheet here that like spending more time on lower fidelity versions of things is like almost always a pretty solid payoff. That just my guess, and I don't know.
It's always hard to do on more lower fidelity versions.
Yeah, just like, oh, here's our scheme. Great, let's make a shitty version that's written on Post-it notes on our kitchen table.
Yeah,
and then like war game it. It's like, all right, now go put this tool away. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not to criticize you. We do the same thing exactly, time and time again. Yeah, it's tough. So in thinking through kind of like talking about low fidelity prototyping or rapid prototyping, maybe that would be a better name actually.
What
if you just called it low fidelity prototyping instead of rapid prototyping? It sort of set the expectation correctly.
Yeah.
You're like, this is what we're doing.
It's not like you just do what people normally do, but faster.
Right. And you're not just 3D printing, which I feel like is now what everyone means by rapid prototyping. Yeah. It's like, make it really, really crappy. Because I think there's a lot of like organizational trust that needs to be established.
Yeah.
Between workers and managers, and even managers and their managers. Like, it takes, I don't know, it's easy to look stupid if you show up to like a board meeting
with a bunch of cardboard
and masking tape, but like often that's where you're at. Right. And so like the fact that you've just spent another 500 hours building that level of knowledge about the solution, but with like really fancy materials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I think I've been thinking about it. Like, how do you establish that trust as a manager, and not just establish that trust, but also if someone comes to you, like I've had this a few times and I don't know, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. When someone comes to you with something that just feels too polished for where you're at, and you sort of want to be like, no, that's like, you don't want to say like you did a bad job because it's good,
right?
But it's good in the wrong direction is basically the problem. That it typically is good in the wrong direction. So they've gone further. They should have checked in for feedback sooner or like tested the thing sooner. And so it's all, but at the same time, you're sort of like, well, good job. Like you did did good work,
it's
but in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I don't know, trying to establish that like habit for people of like doing the crappy version, doing the hand sketch, making it in cardboard and tape. But it takes some, I don't know if balls are quite the word, but like to show up to someone like, here's my deliverable is something that looks like crap.
Right.
Is weird, but is way more effective in terms of like dollars and learning, like dollars per learning or dollars per progress or something.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a universal thing or if it's like endemic to sort of our Western culture and kind of infatuation with shiny polished stuff. 'Cause right. Like if you, again, sort of like zooming out, if someone shows up to a board meeting with a bunch of cardboard,
yeah,
and everybody's only looking at the cardboard and they're comparing the cardboard to the machined version, right? Like that's an easy, like, oh, well, this one sucks compared to that one.
Right.
But as soon as you were to start asking the person questions about where this goes in the future, the likelihood, at least based on our postulation here, is that the person who's done 40 cardboard versions
right
will have 10 times as many answers as the person who's done one metal version.
Yeah, and like much better reasoning behind all the features and the adjustments. Yeah.
And maybe it's just like our infatuation with physical things more than like the fact that this person has the knowledge to carry us forward to where we want to end up, and recognizing that as being the value and not the physical thing as being the value.
Yeah.
I don't know how you instill that kind of cultural shift, especially in people who sell physical goods for a living.
But even if it's like ideas, I just think there's you almost need to, okay, if someone has resolved all details before presenting something, then that is considered to be a good thing, right? You have an answer for everything. You are you know exactly whatever. But like that sort of inherently means that you went too far without checking in with the user, with the customer, with the market, with whoever, right? Like it is almost, it is bad because you have spent time. I don't know. I always think about like dead reckoning versus like constant feedback. Yeah. And dead reckoning, the risk is that you've headed in the wrong direction between like checking back in, right? Like a PID loop. We've talked about that. Yeah. And like if you have feedback every second on an oven, the temperature is much more likely to be correct at any given point. But if you wait, 3 months between check-ins, it could be, you could have burnt muffins, I guess.
After 3 months, hopefully you have burnt muffins.
yeah, very dry. I don't know. But I don't know as a manager how to sort of make corrections in that direction, because it's a weird idea. It's like, hey, I hate how polished this is. Like, you are a skilled person and I want you to bring less of that skill to bear because it may be in the wrong direction. I think
that's not really it. And kind of going back to like Toyota improvement kata, I think the question there as like someone who's coaching, which effectively you are, is not like, again, not focused on the physical thing. It's like, did you answer the question effectively that this physical thing was supposed to answer?
Right. Like, what was your hypothesis with this? What was it meant to test?
Yeah. And it should become clear that either they did an amazing job.
That's a very good point.
And this is the product of them having done an amazing job, or they completely missed the mark. In which case, actually, if they miss the mark, like, you're not giving the feedback. Like, right, you're not having to tell them they suck because they made something nice, right? You're like, well, that wasn't really what we were trying to achieve here.
Right.
That's clear to everybody.
That's true. Staying focused on the question that they were trying to answer sort of takes the wind out of the sails of like, well, at least it looks really nice.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, what was the what was the question that you're trying to answer?
Yeah.
And then help me understand what this prototype, like, why does that help answer that question?
Yeah. And there is also, that leaves an opening for the possibility that they answered the question very effectively, and they did do a really good job on that front, and they made something amazing.
Yes, but long term, so like I went to design school, and maybe I'm flattering myself here, but like I think most of my designs were pretty solid that I presented, but I think my process, like we were just talking about with like being dyslexic, and so you can just like, you can't lean, like, if you can lean on the fact that you're just like a good intuitive problem solver, then actually it leaves room for a less good process.
Sure.
And I think it's same here. It's like, I don't actually care if you guessed and you're really good and so you got it right.
Yeah.
I like, that's cool, I guess. Like, that's why we hired you, right? Because you're like clever and good, but like you still really need that process. So like, I do feel like going through design school, I didn't really understand it at the time, but like my professors were sort of like, yeah, who cares if it's better than the other ones in the room? I mean, not all of them, but like, I feel like they were normally quite well thought out, but they were kind of like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, isn't the goal to make a good thing? And at the time, I think I just didn't understand. It's like, no, the goal is to make a reliable process. Like, that's the goal.
To learn how to make good things.
To learn how to make good things reliably. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. So, I think, I like that. Just like the critique is kind of like, what was the question we're trying to answer?
Yeah.
And then did the thing you build help answer that question? And then are there any frills on that have nothing to do with answering that question? In which case, like, that was sort of, we could have done this test a week ago.
Yeah. I think I also have found myself not like constantly, but occasionally sort of leaning on the, is this actually actionable? Like, someone might present, to continue with this metaphor of like this highly polished physical whatever
muffin.
Yeah. Very nice muffin.
Shiny muffin.
And someone may present this like amazing muffin. Like, this is going to be our product, right?
Yeah.
You're like, cool, that's a great muffin. We don't have an oven right now, so let's make a muffin that we can effectively bake without an oven.
Yeah.
Right. Like, maybe we have a toaster oven right now.
Right.
So if we're going to make muffins, they have to be muffins that we make in a toaster oven.
Yeah.
That's our goal right now. Not the most amazing muffin.
Yeah.
And I think that also takes the focus off of like a personal critique. It takes the focus off of, it lets them sort of like, what am I trying to say? I feel like it lets you give recognition for the fact that they designed an amazing muffin, and it's just not the muffin we need right now,
Right.
And it's not the muffin that solved the question we're trying to ask right now, which is, how do we reliably make muffins with a toaster oven that people want to eat and buy?
Yeah.
Right. And it sort of seems like, coming back to Toyota improvement kata stuff, like, you're designing these scientific experiments, and the results don't lie, and it doesn't have to be about whether someone was good at their job or whether we all like their design or whatnot. It's just like, did it answer the question effectively?
Yeah, and then you're ramping up to with products, you're ramping up to the culmination of all those questions is like, will people buy the thing for the money you need?
Yeah.
And then ideally, are they excited about that?
Right.
Like, are they telling their friends?
Yeah. We're dealing with this with systems where it's like, okay, we can both see that there is a world in which having, right, like a QR scannable thing that automatically populates a list and automatically sends an order and blah, would be really cool.
Yeah.
But then dialing it back, it's like, okay, well, how many hours do we have between the two of us to make this happen?
Yeah.
Do we even have access to all the information that would allow that system to function?
Right.
I don't think so. So we got to do something that works now.
Yeah.
Let's make it work now.
And even in making it work now, like, I don't know, that's a very real example. We have a few times been like, great, let's go. And then spent a bunch of time like printing out these cards. And then 2 days later, we're like, major overhaul of the whole system, getting way better.
Yeah.
And super excited about it. But now we have to reprint all those cards. And actually, if we had just printed 5 cards, we would have been able to find out the same stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get ahead of yourself and be like, wow, great. Like, let's implement this instead of like, let's trial this.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the question with each version is kind of like, I mean, the question has to be at least, is this good? Right?
Yeah.
Like, are there things we're not seeing yet? Like, what are ways we can find out workflows that this doesn't quite meet? Instead of being excited about the thing you think it does and like focusing on that, sort of like, what else might it not do well before we print another 50 of these bad boys?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
So is this just becoming the like Make It Crappy podcast? Is that we should rename it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, make it crappy.
Make it
1,000 times.
Over and over.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very telling that like someone who's very experienced, you know, I mean, this is kind of what we're trying to do, actually, exactly. Someone who's very, very experienced, like, and you show them, like, I don't know, when you're getting into like woodworking and you show someone like your joinery that you're very impressed with, and they're like, yeah, there's that issue. And you're like, oh, what? And it's like, well, you have like some glue squeeze out here, and like you have some tear out from like your dull blade, or you're not going over, you know, like on and on and on. And like what they're able to see in that is at such a high level because of all the reps they have. And so like essentially you should always be aiming to make something crappy, because that says something about like your ability to perceive and see and your ability to execute, and those are constantly increasing together. Yeah, I think is kind of like, and then, I mean, there was another great quote that I think we were trying to save for another time by Mark Twain, that I don't remember exactly, but it was like, oh no, now I'm not remembering.
Pull it up?
Yeah, pull it up. It was like, to get the best way to get good is to get started. Where is it? Anyway,
the secret
like
of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks and starting on the first one.
Yeah, so a prototype should be a sub. It's that last part, right? A prototype should be like a subtask, and then you're like, did I solve that? Yeah. Yes, I did. Great. Any fixes I would make, and then it's like on to the next one and the next one, and then you sort of bring them together. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Something to get better at.
Always. I have a small, just kind of interesting sidebar. Yeah. Considering rearranging our shop.
I feel like this is like me considering buying another CNC.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we first moved into the shop space and kind of laid out the flow, you were kind of like, I think maybe you should do this. And now a while into it, I'm like, I think maybe we should have done that.
Well, that's gratifying, but not very helpful.
Yeah.
I guess.
And it's kind of interesting. I've been dipping back into that Job Shop Lean book.
Oh, cool.
And it's the chapter I'm in right now is talking about sort of like the different sorts of layouts and their benefits and drawbacks.
Interesting. That's cool.
So the traditional shop layout, not lean, is what's referred to as a functional layout, as in things are arranged by function.
Right, like lathe department, mill department, cutting. Yeah.
And the kind of the book starts out as like you should not do that and go towards a cell type layout. But an interesting thing that was brought up recently in the book is that like they both have their pros and cons.
Right.
And that a functional layout is extremely versatile in that you have basically an infinite number of routings in the shop.
Right.
Whereas a cell layout, basically, whatever you run through that cell, it either needs to use all the machines or the machines will be idle if they are not being used.
Right.
Whereas in a functional layout, anything can go from any one machine to any other machine in the shop.
That feels very much like embracing the chaos stage.
It's more like...
because like you never know where it's going to go, and it's like, well, is there like an 80%? Right. Like, is 80% of our work one basic flow? Yes. And then we can sort of violate that cell system for the 20%.
Right. And that is the question.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of an interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of this book is about these softwares that basically analyze your job mix to design cells based on what those actual breakdowns look like, which I'm kind of like, well, it's not, we're not there.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of good to keep that in mind in how I lay out the shop. So basically,
right, like being aware of that trade-off curve between.
Yeah.
I mean, that's generally true. That as your optimization for a particular thing goes up, the generalization goes down.
Yeah,
kind of.
Generally true. And basically, you're trading, in the flow, you get increased throughput for less versatility. The other way, higher versatility, but it promotes batch and queue style production.
Right.
And more complex routing. Anyway, all this was going towards. When we laid out the shop, I was very much focused on material flow, part flow in the shop. And having been there for a while now, I'm like, parts don't move that often.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, they do, but
like you walking back and forth is a much bigger factor.
We move a lot.
Right.
And there's a happy medium in there for sure, where you don't want to make the like part flow and chip flow insane.
Yeah.
But it really just, they don't move that much.
Interesting.
In part because I think we are more batch and queue.
Right.
And we like flow in little chunks.
Yep.
And then batch and then transfer. So it's just kind of interesting now to be a few months into it.
Mm-hmm.
4 months, going on 5 in the new space. And realizing that kind of, again, it's easy to focus on the physical things and totally miss the forest for the trees and not think about how much everything else in the shop moves. And it's a lot.
Right. That's interesting. Right. Like there's two spaghetti maps. One is the people and one is the parts.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is inherently true, but as you're bringing one up, like as you're optimizing for one, it is it always at the cost of the other?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I think that also goes back to...
This might be like a yin and yang thing, like how do you get both, kind of?
Yeah, it's like optimization will reduce both. Or like...
Right. Like improvements can target both.
They can target both, and I think also the closer you can get to flow, probably...
Right.
The better both will be.
True. I'm thinking like a specific example would be like walking parts to a tumbler.
Yeah.
But then through improvement, you might be able to deburr them in the machine for much less total system cost.
Sure.
Like if you're paying people to walk over there and paying people to change the filters and all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's just, I don't know. if you're going to arrange a new shop, think about how you move.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, how would you test that? That would be another interesting one.
Yeah, I think there's also going to be some ways we can just mitigate a little bit.
Like, do you lay out a model and then, like, imagine a day and, like, walk your little Lego man around? It's like, nah, I'm going to go.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we are we may not need to rearrange the shop right now.
Yeah.
I think in part it's just highlighting some issues.
Yeah.
That I think we can tackle in other ways aside from just moving things to be more proximal.
Interesting.
Right. Like we have this whole setup cart concept, which we're going to start on short. Like I ordered the stuff. We haven't assembled.
Oh, cool.
One. So like there's a lot of back and forth right now that doesn't need to be there.
What are the carts?
They will be like a
maker pipe.
No, I ordered some half height sheet pan racks.
Oh, nice.
The half height, half width.
You found?
I found, not with wheels, but I found.
Okay. And then some dollies or something?
We just got one to test it out.
Wow, look at you. Very nice. You didn't want to save on shipping and get full send 10.
No, we're going to try it out, make sure it works, see if it's used.
Yeah.
And see if we want to make changes. Idea being that basically tooling and material gets staged on a cart when it's prepped for a job, and then the whole cart goes to the machine.
Ooh, I feel like doing that is going to like unlock a whole host of new like improvements to be made.
Yeah, I think so.
Like the queuing and timing and
yeah. I think it's going to also serve as a Kanban indicator.
Right. Like the queue of carts at different stations kind of, or
like when a job tag moves to a cart, it's like this is ready to roll kind of a thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We'll update as we proceed.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I've in talking to a lot of these companies, I've been talking through some solutions, and your job board has definitely come up more than once. And it's making me realize that like we have a lot of stuff we could and should kind of share. Every time I post a video of like the thing I'm doing, I feel like I get a lot of really helpful comments. Also a lot of unhelpful comments, but but it's always, I'm like, oh man, like, I mean, some of them are really small things, but you're like, that is such an easy win. Anyway.
Yeah. Nice.
On that topic,
on that
note, thanks all for listening. As always, we have a Patreon. Please consider checking it out. The link is in the comments. You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com on the internet.
You can find me at lichen_mfg on Instagram, lichenprecision.com on the internet. You can find the pod at incrementalci on Instagram, and we will see you next week.